I'm sure you are aware that the Yoko and OSP are clashing on this stashed case involving Cecilia Dapaah, with OSP saying that some journalists have been paid and Yoko also fighting back with some claims that OSP is making. But in all of this, what does this mean for our fight against corruption? Joining me for this conversation is Kpebu, a lawyer via Zoom, and Edem Senanu, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Good morning, sweetie.
Great. Is that Kpebu or Senanu Edem? Who did I hear?
Yes, that's Martin here.
Okay, right.
And this is Edem here also.
Great.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me start with you, Edem Senanu. I'm sure you've been following on how the issue have, sort of reached a stampede. At this point, does this in any way reflect our readiness or our capacity to fight corruption in this country?
Well, thank you. When you say readiness, evidently we are not ready to fight corruption because I think that perhaps from the AG's level, there should have been an effort to, if necessary, connect with the OSP, connect the OSP to Yoko and just say, look, this is what Yoko is asking for. What are the difficulties? Can we provide the information? There should have been facilitation because that is actually the responsibility and the mandate of the Attorney General, that when there's a crime state, he has an interest in making sure that it is resolved. We have priority. There's a difficulty here when only letter is discussed because the person, the funds, source of funds are for funded. When you talk about capacity, I don't think it's a lack of capacity.
Your line is breaking. Could you reposition and then pick it up again?
Okay, is it clearer?
Right, it's clearer. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you talk about capacity, I don't think that it's for a lack of capacity. I think that the agencies have a lot of professional with technical know-how. In this instance, a little more collaboration would have gotten us better results. And indeed, just keeping faith with the specific mandate as according to the law, because I don't see how Yoko would say that they don't have anything to investigate. I think that is extremely problematic.
Before I go back, before I bring in Kpebu, the inconsistencies in the reportage, in the details of this case, OSP saying that Yoko did not request for the reports, Yoko saying that they were expected to be provided with these reports, the back and forth. Does it in any way tell us that the absence of evidence in the fight of corruption is inadvertently an evidence of absence?
No, in this instance, as far as we are concerned, the evidence is clear. We know that millions, hundreds and thousands of dollars were found with no explanation. So anybody who says there's no evidence,
that's not the problem. The fact that there's no explanation as to where the money is coming from, and now they're saying there's no reason to even investigate it for money laundering and corruption. Is that not problematic?
So let me put it this way.
Okay.
Evidence there is. It is a lack of willingness, in my view, of the mandated institution to take the issue up and investigate. The mandate of Yoko and that this is to investigate. You don't say that an institution did or did not provide you sufficient evidence. Whatever evidence they provided, you still needed to investigate. In this instance, we are clear in our minds that the witness statements that came with the docket are a sufficient basis because they demonstrated the discrepancy between her formal salary or income level and then the properties and monies available to her in millions of dollars. You're not talking CGs, It tells you there's a problem and she has not been able to explain, which is required. So there was actually no reason why Yoko should say they will not investigate. That's a big question. So this back and forth should not be there. As for letters, let me give you an analogy. If a group is responsible for investigating murders, they deal and focus on murders. They go and investigate and do a report on murders. And as they're doing the report on murders, they find that somebody stole. There was a theft. And there's a second group responsible for theft. So they pick the part of the information, which is just a letter, and send it to the group responsible for theft and say that, please, when we're doing our investigation on murders, we found this information that has to be tested. So we've given it to you so you can do your investigation.
Right.
Then the group responsible for theft says that, oh, we want your report on murders. For us to prosecute our case on theft, we want your report on murders. It doesn't make sense because their report will not have anything of value to you.
Adam, I get your point, but I want you to hold for me. Let me bring in Martin Kpebu in at this point. Martin Kpebu is a lawyer. Martin, thank you for joining the conversation. So, where does all of this sit with you? I'm sure you've been following the case and the conversation to this point. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Right.
It shows a barefaced attempt to just let Madam Dapaah off the hook, which should not be tolerated in Ghana today. I'm telling you, this is a barefaced attempt. It's so glaring that Attorney General Godfrey Dami and Madam Chiwa Dankwa Yoko boss just want to let Madam Cecilia Dapaah off the hook. I'm telling you, why do I say so? One, and some of the points Adam has already eloquently raised. Listen, sweetie, the docket that was handed over to Madam Chiwa Dankwa has at least 20 statements. So let's say, Sweetie Abuchi, you wrote one statement. You told OSP what you know about Madam Dapaah and the money. Adam Sananu wrote another statement. Benjamin Akaku wrote one. Kingsley wrote one. 20. 1, 2, 3, up to 20. That's not a joke. So you see that the blame game Yoko is involved in now with OSP is just an attempt to cover up their failure to take the money that was handed over to Cecilia Dapaah. That's $540,000 cash, hard cash, dollars. If you bring that into Ghana cedis, that's close to what? 6 million Ghana. It's over 6 million Ghana. And over 2.7 million cash. And these are monies that as soon as OSP said he was handing over the docket to Yoko, we started calling on Yoko to make sure that they will be present when OSP is handing over the money, so that Yoko too can seize the money. Because Yoko has the same powers of seizure and freezing as the OSP has. So they can take the money immediately, and then after 7 days, then they go to court. Those same provisions that the OSP used. So, sweetie, listen, as for this case, nobody can convince me that it is not an attempt to cover up Cecilia Dapaah. Nobody can convince me.
Are you saying it's all the institutions involved? Saturday, Martin, are you saying that it is the OSP, Iyoko, and the Attorney General, or is OSP versus Attorney General and Iyoko? Or is just all of them in bed together? Your claim that is they are just
OSP
trying
is
to...
not part.
Okay.
OSP is not part of this. It's Attorney General and Iyoko who want to free Madam Dapaah.
Right.
That is what I'm saying. Godfrey Dami was on News File on Saturday. You know that he claimed that Iyoko had finished its investigations and found nothing against Madam Dapaah.
Right.
Meanwhile, the letter that his own subordinate, Evelyn Kilson, wrote said that Iyoko could commence investigations. Yet Godfrey Dami was on News File saying that the investigations had been concluded and nothing was found. So you could see clearly that Godfrey Dami is part of that scheme to free Madam Dapaah. It's very shameful, very shameful that you have your own Attorney General seeking to let go of accused persons without holding them to account.
All right, Martin. Let me come back to Edem Senanu for a wrap. Edem, where does this leave us now? What's the way forward? The docket has been returned to the OSP. OSP said, although it had closed the case, it said it can reopen it if there's a reason to. But how do we move forward from now?
I think that I find two places where some actions, in fact, all of them, I think the OSP can make a public statement indicating the nature of what was handed over to the Yoko and why they could not provide the other investigative report. I think the OSP can also encourage you to read the FBI report, the potential anti-law. So OSP do and take you. I think to review position. I think let's blunt and frank here. We are all saying that we are not convinced by this position that they cannot investigate.
Right.
Unfortunately, the law is clear. They should act and show us that they are responsive to the citizens of this nation. And then finally, I think that the AG has a strategic role. We ought to be facilitating a solution. We cannot say that we have a public officer who had thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars and nobody knows the source, and she will not explain when the laws require her to do so, and our AG will not make a comment on that. He ought to be facilitating the solution. So there's opportunity for everybody, and we in civil society and media must keep the fire on this issue and make sure that they deliver something that sets a good precedent. Otherwise, we are only helping corruption become much more of an impunity in this country.
Thank you so much, Adam Sana, who's a Citizens Movement Against Corruption member. Martin Kpebu, you have about a minute to give me your final words, and then we wrap it up.
Okay, yeah, so what we expect Yoko to do is that, listen, they should go back into the case. It's so clear. What the law says is that when you find plenty cash like this in somebody's house, check the income. And so far, like Adam stated, the income of Madam Dapaah doesn't match that money. And also, the explanation she's giving, funeral donations for the deceased brother, cosmetic business, all those have proven to be false. So this money is something that we would take and we will prosecute her under Section 1, Subsection 3 of the Anti-Money Laundering Act, Act 1044.
Thank you so much, Martin Kpebu, who's also a lawyer, for joining the conversation. Well, we have to wrap it up. And like they rightly said, the onus falls on us as citizens and media persons to ensure that we make the powers that be hear our voices in this country.